Grandpa Musa lived in a quiet neighborhood on the edge of town. He had spent most of his life in the same house, and he loved his little garden and the wooden chair on his porch. Everyone knew him as a kind old man who waved at neighbors and shared fruits from his trees. One summer morning, something unusual happened. A group of 3 men came to his house. They were wearing plain shirts but had badges clipped to their pockets. They introduced themselves as officers from the Homeowners Association. Grandpa Musa was confused because he had never heard of such a group in his area. The tallest man, who called himself Rami, spoke with authority. He said the neighborhood rules had changed and that Grandpa Musa had to pay a fine for his improper fence. Grandpa Musa frowned. His fence had been there for 20 years, and no one had ever complained. He told them calmly that he would not pay for something that made no sense. The men exchanged looks. Then the second man, who had a scar on his cheek, stepped forward. He spoke in a sharp voice and said that if Grandpa Musa did not pay, they would take serious action. Grandpa Musa, though old, was not afraid. He told them firmly to leave his property. Instead of leaving, the men pushed their way closer. One grabbed Grandpa Musa's arm tightly. Grandpa tried to pull back, but the man twisted his arm until a sharp crack was heard. Grandpa cried out in pain and fell to his knees. The men warned him again to follow their demands and then walked away quickly, leaving him hurt and in shock. A neighbor named Iqbal saw the men leaving and rushed to help. He found Grandpa Musa holding his arm, his face pale with pain. Iqbal called for an ambulance and stayed by his side until help came. Soon, Grandpa was taken to the hospital. The doctors said his arm was broken and would take many weeks to heal. News of what happened spread fast in the family. When Grandpa's grandchildren heard, they were shocked and angry. Among them were 2 cousins, Hamza and Bilal, who were known in town for their strong bond and their love for motorcycles. They were part of a local biker group that often traveled together across the countryside. Hamza was the first to arrive at the hospital. He saw his grandfather lying on the bed with his arm in a cast. Musa tried to smile, but his eyes were full of sadness. Hamza held his hand gently and promised that whoever had done this would not be allowed to harm him again. Bilal came soon after. He listened to the story quietly, his jaw tight with anger. He asked Iqbal to describe the men, and every detail was stored in his mind. Bilal was not quick to speak, but when he made a decision, he followed it through with full force. That evening, the cousins met outside the hospital with their biker friends. There were 6 of them, all loyal to one another, all wearing black jackets and helmets resting on their bikes. The sound of their engines echoed across the street as they gathered. Hamza explained what had happened. He spoke about the fake officers, the broken arm, and the threat they had left behind. Every man in the group felt the same fire inside. They respected Grandpa Musa, who had always treated them like his own sons. None of them could accept such cruelty against him. The leader of the biker group, an older rider named Salim, placed a hand on Hamza's shoulder. He told him that this was not just a family matter anymore. The group would stand together, because when one elder was harmed, it was like harming them all. That night, under the yellow glow of the streetlights, the cousins and their friends made a pact. They would find out who those men really were. They would uncover the truth about this so-called homeowners association. And when they found the ones responsible, they would make sure they never touched Grandpa Musa or anyone else again. The engines roared as the bikers rode into the night, their headlights cutting through the darkness. The quiet neighborhood had no idea that a storm was coming, but the cousins were ready. What began as an attack on an old man was about to awaken the strength of a family united by loyalty and revenge. The next morning, Hamza and Bilal returned to their grandfather's house. The garden still looked peaceful, but the memory of what had happened there made the cousins restless. They walked around the fence that the so-called officers had complained about. It was old, yes, but strong and neat. Nothing about it looked wrong. Bilal touched the wood and shook his head. They were not here for the fence. They came for something else, he said. Hamza agreed. He believed the men had chosen Grandpa Musa because he was old and lived alone. They thought he would be easy to scare. But they had made a mistake. The cousins decided to start asking questions. They went to the neighborhood tea shop where locals gathered every morning. Many had already heard the story. Some were shocked, while others admitted they too had seen strangers walking around the area in the past weeks. An older man at the shop told them he had once been asked to pay a maintenance fee by people claiming to be from the same homeowners association. He refused, and they never came back, but the memory now seemed connected. Hamza listened carefully. So they are moving from house to house, trying to scare people, he said. Bilal's eyes narrowed. Then they are not officers. They are thieves with badges. The cousins went back to their biker group that evening. The 6 friends gathered again near the workshop where they kept their bikes. Hamza repeated what they had learned. Everyone agreed the fake officers were trying to control the neighborhood by fear and money. Salim, the group's leader, suggested they look deeper. If they are organized, they will come again. We should be ready. So the cousins made a plan. For the next few nights, the bikers would take turns watching the streets around Grandpa Musa's house. They kept their bikes parked nearby and acted as if they were only visiting. In truth, their eyes were on every shadow and every stranger. On the 3rd night, their patience was rewarded. Just past sunset, a black van entered the neighborhood and stopped 2 houses away from Musa's home. The same 3 men stepped out, carrying clipboards and speaking loudly to a young couple at the door. From the corner, Hamza watched them closely. He recognized the tall one, Rami, from the hospital story. Hamza whispered to Bilal, "It is them." Bilal tightened his fists. He wanted to rush forward, but Hamza held him back. "Not now. We need to know where they go." The bikers followed the men at a distance as they moved from house to house. Sometimes they left with envelopes in their hands. Other times they walked away quickly when people refused. At the end of the street, they returned to their van and drove off. The bikers mounted their motorcycles and tailed the van through town. The engines growled softly as they kept their distance. Finally, the van stopped at an old warehouse near the edge of the city. The men went inside without looking back. Bilal's eyes burned with anger. So this is their place. Salim spoke with calm authority. We cannot rush inside yet. We need to be wise. Let us watch first. They hid their bikes behind a row of trees and observed. Through the broken windows of the warehouse, they saw other men moving around. At least 7 or 8 were inside. Tables were stacked with papers, boxes, and envelopes. It was clear the group was collecting money from many families, not just Musa. Hamza felt his chest tighten. This is bigger than we thought. That night, the bikers returned to the workshop to talk. They agreed that the fake officers were running a scam across several neighborhoods. They had hurt Musa because he stood up to them, and they would likely harm others too. Bilal leaned forward, his voice low but firm. We will not allow this. But we must be careful. They are many, and they think no one will stop them. Hamza looked around at his friends. Their faces were hard, but their loyalty was clear. "Then we will be the ones to stop them," he said. The group nodded together. The bond between them was stronger than fear. They knew the coming days would be dangerous, but none of them would step back. As night fell over the town, the cousins felt the weight of their promise. What had begun as an attack on one old man had revealed a hidden chain of crime. The bikers were not just seeking revenge anymore. They were preparing to fight for their neighborhood, for their families, and for every honest person who lived under threat. The next morning, the cousins visited Grandpa Musa again at the hospital. His arm was still in a cast, but his spirit was stronger. He asked them if they had found anything. Hamza told him about the warehouse and the men who were collecting money. Musa listened quietly, his face thoughtful. Then he placed his good hand on Hamza's. "My sons," he said softly, "be careful. Do not fight them in anger. Fight them with wisdom. That is how you will win." Hamza promised they would take care. But in his heart, the fire of anger still burned. Bilal too could not forget the moment he saw those men twist their grandfather's arm. That evening, the biker group met again at Salim's workshop. The smell of oil and the sound of tools filled the place, but their minds were only on the fake officers. Salim laid out a map of the city on the wooden table. He marked the warehouse and the neighborhoods nearby. "These men are not small thieves," Salim explained. "They are running an organized scam. If we want to stop them, we must strike in the right way." Hamza suggested they collect proof first. "If we show their tricks to the people, no one will fear them again." Bilal leaned forward. "And when their power is gone, we can deal with them face to face." The group agreed. Their first step would be to gather evidence. So the next night, Hamza and Bilal returned to the warehouse with two other bikers, Zayn and Amir. They carried small cameras and notebooks. Hiding behind the trees, they watched as more families came with envelopes. The fake officers took the money and wrote false receipts with fake signatures. Zayn whispered, "They are collecting a fortune every week." Amir nodded. "If the police see this, they cannot ignore it." Hamza recorded everything on his phone. He captured the faces of the men, the envelopes of money, and the tables full of fake documents. When they left, Hamza felt a sense of progress. But Bilal's face stayed hard. "Proof is good," he said, "but sometimes proof is not enough. These men are bold because they think no one can touch them." The next day, the bikers spread out across the neighborhoods. They spoke with families who had been forced to pay. Many were afraid to talk at first, but when they heard what happened to Musa, their courage grew. One woman showed a fake letter she had received with threats written on it. A shopkeeper admitted he had paid 3 times already. Hamza collected every detail carefully. By the end of the week, he had a folder full of papers, photos, and recordings. The people in the neighborhood started to whisper. They realized they were not alone. Hope began to rise slowly. But the fake officers also noticed the change. One evening, as Bilal rode home, he saw a black van following him. He did not panic. Instead, he led them into a busy street where many people were walking. The van stopped and turned away, but Bilal understood the warning. That night, Bilal told the others. Salim frowned. "They know someone is watching them. We must move faster before they try something worse." Hamza agreed. He suggested they reveal the truth to the whole neighborhood. If everyone knows their game, these men cannot scare anyone again. So the bikers planned a gathering. They asked the families to meet in the community park on Saturday evening. Word spread quietly but quickly. When the day arrived, dozens of people came, curious and worried. Children played near the swings, while parents stood in groups, waiting. Hamza climbed onto a small platform and raised his voice. He told the story of what happened to Grandpa Musa. He spoke about the fake officers, their van, and their warehouse. Then he showed the recordings and the fake receipts. The crowd gasped as they saw the truth with their own eyes. Bilal stepped forward. His voice was firm. They chose our grandfather because he was old. They thought no one would stand for him. But they were wrong. We will not let them take money from anyone again. The crowd clapped and cheered. Fear began to turn into anger, and anger began to turn into unity. People realized they were stronger together. That night, as the cousins rode home, Hamza felt proud. But Bilal kept his eyes on the road, serious and silent. He knew the fake officers would not stay quiet after this. A storm was coming, and the bikers had to be ready. After the community gathering, the mood of the neighborhood changed. Families no longer avoided speaking about the fake officers. Instead, they shared information with one another. People stopped opening their doors to strangers with badges. Some even began to keep lights on outside their houses at night. The cousins and their biker friends felt encouraged, but they also knew danger was near. The men at the warehouse would not ignore this challenge. 2 nights later, the danger showed itself. Hamza and Bilal were walking back from the hospital after visiting Musa when they noticed 2 figures waiting near the gate of their street. The men stepped forward and blocked their path. It was Rami, the tall one, and the scar-faced man. Rami smiled coldly. "You think you are clever, don't you? Showing your little videos to the people." Bilal stood firm. "We only showed the truth." "That is what you fear." The scar-faced man sneered. "You want to act like heroes? Then be ready for what comes next." Before they could say more, the sound of engines filled the street. 4 motorcycles appeared, their headlights cutting through the darkness. Salim and the others arrived, stopping beside Hamza and Bilal. The 2 fake officers looked uneasy for the first time. Salim spoke in a calm voice. "Leave now. This street does not belong to you." Rami's smile faded, but he raised his hand as if promising a future fight. "This is not finished." Then they walked away, their shadows melting into the night. The bikers knew the message was clear. The fake officers were preparing to strike back. The very next evening, a small shop near the neighborhood park was vandalized. Windows were broken, shelves overturned. The owner, who had spoken at the gathering, told Hamza that 2 men had warned him earlier in the day. It was obvious who was behind it. The cousins gathered the group again at the workshop. Everyone was tense. Amir kicked at the floor angrily. "They are trying to scare us back into silence." Hamza raised his hand. "If they think fear will work again, they are wrong. We must protect the people." Salim nodded. "From tonight, we patrol the streets. We are not just bikers now. We are guardians." That night, the group divided into pairs and rode slowly through the streets. Their engines echoed like a warning bell. Children peeked from windows, feeling safer when they saw the familiar jackets. Parents waved in quiet thanks. Around midnight, Bilal and Zayn spotted a black van parked suspiciously near an alley. They approached carefully. As soon as the van's door opened, 3 men stepped out holding bats. But when they saw the bikers were not alone, more headlights appeared from the other end of the street. Hamza, Amir, and Salim rolled in, forming a wall of motorcycles. Bilal's voice rang out. "No more games. This is our neighborhood. Leave now." For a moment, the men hesitated. Their eyes shifted nervously between the bikers. Then, without a word, they climbed back into the van and sped away. The bikers did not chase them. They had already sent a message: the neighborhood was no longer theirs to control. Still, the cousins knew this was only the beginning. The fake officers were not used to losing. They would strike harder next time. The following morning, Hamza visited Musa again. He told his grandfather about the patrols and how the bikers had faced the van. Musa listened with pride, but his eyes showed concern. "My sons," he said softly, "strength is not only in your arms. It is in your unity. Never let anger break that unity." Hamza promised they would stand together. When he left the hospital, he found Bilal waiting outside with the bikes. Bilal's jaw was tight as he spoke. "We stopped them once, but they will return. We must be ready for war." Hamza looked at his cousin. The words were heavy, but he knew they were true. What began as protection was turning into a battle for the future of their neighborhood. As evening came, the bikers gathered again, engines roaring, spirits united. The streets that once feared shadows now echoed with strength. Yet, in the distance, the black van still moved from place to place. The clash between two worlds had begun, and the fight was far from over. Days passed, and the tension in the neighborhood grew heavier. The bikers kept their patrols, but the black van still appeared from time to time, like a shadow refusing to leave. People were grateful for the protection, yet fear lingered in their hearts. One evening, Hamza gathered the group at the workshop. He laid the folder of proof on the table: the photos, recordings, and fake receipts. "We have enough to show the police," he said. Amir looked doubtful. "Will the police believe us? Those men are clever. They might have friends in high places." Salim rubbed his beard. "It is possible. If we go too early, the evidence could be buried. We must strike at the right time, when the people and the truth stand together." Bilal, who had been silent, finally spoke. "Then we make them show themselves. If they are bold enough to hurt Musa, they are bold enough to walk into a trap." The group turned to him. Bilal explained his idea. They would spread word that a large community payment was being collected at the park. The rumor would reach the fake officers, and they would surely come for the money. But instead of envelopes waiting, they would find the entire neighborhood and the bikers ready. Hamza's eyes lit up. "We give them their own medicine. They come to take, and we give them truth instead." The plan was risky, but the group agreed. Over the next few days, whispers spread across the streets. Families acted naturally, but each household quietly prepared to gather on Saturday evening. When the day arrived, the park was filled with people. Some sat on benches, others stood in groups, pretending it was an ordinary evening. Behind the scenes, the bikers positioned themselves around the area. Salim waited near the entrance. Bilal stood by the playground. Hamza was in the center with the folder of proof. The sun dipped low, and the air grew tense. At last, the sound of an engine approached. The black van rolled slowly into the street and stopped by the park gate. Out stepped Rami, the scar-faced man, and 3 others. Their expressions were confident, as if nothing could stop them. Rami called out, "We are here for the collection. Hand it over, and there will be no trouble." But instead of frightened silence, a wave of murmurs spread through the crowd. People stepped aside to reveal Hamza standing tall with the folder in his hand. "There is no money here," Hamza said clearly. "Only truth." Bilal moved closer, his voice strong. "Your game is finished. Everyone knows who you are now." The scar-faced man laughed. "Do you think words will stop us? We can break every one of you." But before he could step forward, Salim signaled. In an instant, the bikers revved their engines, the roar echoing across the park. Families closed ranks behind them. What had once been a quiet neighborhood now looked like a united army. Hamza opened the folder and held up the photos and recordings for all to see. He spoke loudly so everyone could hear. "Here are the faces of thieves. Here is their warehouse. Here are the families they cheated. No more lies." The crowd shouted in agreement. Mothers, fathers, shopkeepers, and children all stood together. The fake officers looked around, realizing they were outnumbered for the first time. Bilal stepped closer to Rami, his eyes sharp. "Leave now, or face the people you tried to control." Rami's confident smile faded. He glanced at the scar-faced man, who shifted uneasily. The strength they had relied on for so long was gone, replaced by the courage of a neighborhood that refused to bow. Finally, Rami muttered, "This is not over," and turned back to the van. The men climbed inside quickly and drove away, the tires screeching as they disappeared into the night. The park erupted in cheers. Children clapped, elders raised their hands in thanks, and families hugged one another. For the first time in weeks, hope shone bright. But the cousins did not celebrate. Hamza's heart was steady, while Bilal's jaw was tight. They both knew the fight was far from finished. The fake officers had been humiliated, and humiliation could turn into dangerous revenge. Salim walked to the cousins. "We stood strong tonight, but be ready. They will come again, and they will come harder." Hamza nodded, his eyes fixed on the road where the van had vanished. The trap had worked, but the war was only just beginning. The park victory gave the neighborhood new courage, but for the fake officers, it was a wound to their pride. At the warehouse, Rami slammed his fist against the table. "They humiliated us in front of everyone," he growled. The scar-faced man leaned closer and whispered, "We must make an example of them. If we let this pass, no one will fear us again." So they began to plan their revenge. Meanwhile, the bikers kept watch. Hamza, Bilal, and their friends continued patrolling the streets. Families now walked outside with lighter steps, but Hamza noticed shadows in every corner. He felt the storm building. Bilal too was restless, often tightening his fists at the smallest sound. One evening, as the bikers gathered at the workshop, a boy from the neighborhood rushed in. He was out of breath, his face pale. "They came," he gasped. "3 men in a van. They smashed Uncle Karim's shop and shouted that next time, it will be worse." Amir jumped to his feet. "This is their answer to the park. They want to spread fear again." Hamza placed a hand on Amir's shoulder. "Then we must end this before it grows." Salim leaned forward, his voice calm but heavy. "They will not stop unless we stop them. Tonight, we go to the warehouse." The group fell silent. The warehouse was the heart of the enemy's operation. Entering it meant facing all of them at once. But when Hamza looked around, he saw no fear in his friend's eyes, only determination. That night, under the cover of darkness, the bikers rode out. Their engines were low, their movements careful. They parked their motorcycles behind the same row of trees as before and crept closer. Through the broken windows, they saw the men inside. Papers and boxes were being packed into bags, as if they were preparing to move their operation. Bilal whispered, "They know time is running out. They want to escape." Hamza's voice was firm. "Then tonight, we finish this." The bikers spread out. Salim and Amir circled to the back entrance, while Hamza, Bilal, and Zayan stayed at the front. At Hamza's signal, they pushed the doors open and stepped inside. The warehouse went silent. Rami and his men froze in surprise, then quickly grabbed sticks and pipes. The scar-faced man sneered. "So the little bikers came to play." Hamza stood tall. "This ends tonight. No more threats, no more lies." The room filled with shouts as the two groups clashed. The bikers moved with unity, protecting one another as they faced the gang. Bilal blocked a swing from a pipe and pushed the attacker back. Hamza grabbed a bag of fake receipts and threw it onto the ground for all to see. Zayan kicked over a table stacked with envelopes, scattering money across the floor. Salim's voice rang out from the back. "Everyone look. This is what they stole from us." The fake officers hesitated. Their secret, hidden for months, now lay in plain sight. Some of their own men looked uneasy, realizing the truth could no longer be buried. Rami charged at Hamza, but Bilal stepped in front, his stance strong. The two locked eyes, anger burning between them. Bilal's voice was steady. "You hurt our grandfather. Tonight you face his family." The fight grew louder, but the bikers did not falter. Together, they pushed the gang toward the exit. Finally, with one last surge, they forced Rami and his men out into the night. The black van waited, and the gang scrambled inside, retreating quickly down the road. The bikers stood in the warehouse, breathing hard but standing tall. Around them lay piles of fake documents, boxes of stolen money, and proof of every crime the gang had committed. Hamza looked at the mess and then at his friends. "We have everything we need now. This is the end of their game." Bilal's chest rose and fell with deep breaths. "They ran tonight, but they will not vanish. We must make sure the law sees this with their own eyes." Salim nodded. "At dawn, we take this proof to the authorities. With the people standing beside us, even the strongest lie cannot survive." As the first light of morning touched the sky, the bikers rode back, carrying boxes of evidence strapped to their bikes. The war was nearly over, but the final step still waited, the step that would decide if justice truly stood with them. The sun had barely risen when Hamza, Bilal, and the rest of the biker group arrived at the city police station. Boxes of evidence were stacked carefully on the hood of the motorcycles: photographs, recordings, fake receipts, and even envelopes filled with money taken from the neighborhoods. Inside the station, Officer Tariq, a tall and serious man, raised his eyebrows. "Where did you get all this?" he asked. Hamza stepped forward. "From the people you should have been protecting." These men were pretending to be officers. They collected money by force and threatened families, including my grandfather. Bilal added, "We recorded everything, and neighbors can confirm it. You need to stop them before they hurt anyone else." Officer Tariq studied the evidence carefully. As he flipped through the papers, the seriousness of the crime became clear. "This is a major operation. These men have been scamming people across the city." Salim, standing quietly in the corner, spoke up. "We followed them, documented their actions, and brought proof. The people cannot be afraid anymore. It is time they face justice." Tariq nodded. "We will act immediately. This will take time, but with your help and the evidence, we can arrest them and end this." The bikers stayed at the station all morning, answering questions and recounting the events that had begun with Grandpa Moose's broken arm. Every detail helped the officers build a complete picture. By afternoon, police cars surrounded the warehouse. Rami, the scar-faced man, and their accomplices were caught off guard. They tried to hide, but the police had already gone through the evidence and knew where everyone was. Within hours, the entire gang was arrested, their van seized, and the stolen money recovered. The news spread quickly. Families who had been threatened came forward, and their voices confirmed the truth. The neighborhood felt a wave of relief. People no longer whispered in fear, they spoke openly about the courage of the bikers who had stood for justice. Back at Grandpa Moose's house, Hamza and Bilal arrived to see their grandfather sitting on the porch. His arm had healed enough for him to move it carefully, but he still wore the cast for support. He smiled when he saw them. "You kept your promise," he said softly. "You protected the people and the truth. I am proud of both of you." Bilal sat beside him. "We could not let them hurt you again. They were wrong, and everyone needed to see it." Musa looked around at the garden he loved, now peaceful again. "Strength is good, but the unity of family and neighbors is stronger. You all showed that tonight." Hamza smiled. "It is not just us. The people helped too. Everyone stood together." The days that followed were quiet. The neighborhood slowly returned to normal. Children played safely in the streets, neighbors greeted one another freely, and the shops reopened without fear. The black van was gone, the fake officers were behind bars, and the stolen money was returned to the families. Hamza and Bilal continued their rides, but now it was different. Instead of chasing shadows, they rode for joy, waving at neighbors and checking that everything remained safe. Salim and the friends often joined them, sharing laughs and stories along the way. One evening, as the sun set, Hamza looked at the streets he had once patrolled in fear. "It feels like a new beginning," he said. Bilal nodded. "We stood together, and we changed things. No one can take away that courage." Grandpa Musa watched from the porch, smiling gently. His arm was strong now, but even more important was the strength of his family and the neighborhood. The fear that had once filled their hearts was gone, replaced by trust, unity, and hope. And so, the neighborhood remained safe, not because of rules or threats, but because of the people who refused to let injustice win. The bikers had proven that courage, loyalty, and wisdom could overcome even the darkest plans. Grandpa Musa's story became a lesson for everyone: when a family and a community stand together, no one can break them. Peace returned to the streets, laughter replaced whispers, and the roar of engines now meant freedom, not fear. Hamza, Bilal, and their friends had not only avenged Grandpa Musa, but they had also brought justice and safety to everyone around them. The night fell, calm and quiet. For the first time in a long while, the neighborhood slept without worry.